You're listening to the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. And on today's episode of the podcast, we're reviewing match number 11 of this Super 8 stage of this ICC T20 World Cup for 2024 between Australia and India. And it was a dominant performance by India. They blew Australia straight out of this T20 World Cup and have erased the scars from the Cricket World Cup final defeat to Australia almost a year ago. It was led by a rampaging Rohit Sharma with the bat, who played an absolute blinder of an innings, and India were able to get the job done and showed why they are one of the strongest teams in this T20 World Cup and one of the favourites to win the tournament as a whole. For Australia, they were again quite simply not up to the task or the test. And with this defeat against India, but also Afghanistan winning against Bangladesh in dramatic style, their T20 World Cup campaign has come to a disappointing end. They will be disappointed in the way they have played against India in this game, but also in the match against Afghanistan. Both of these defeats have pretty much ended their T20 World Cup hopes. Going into the tournament as one of the favourites, unfortunately, they weren't able to progress to the semi-finals. So plenty to talk about from this game between Australia and India. Lots happened. We saw some wonderful innings played by Rohit Sharma and Travis Head. High-scoring affair, some good bowling and some good fielding. So there's plenty to talk about from this game between Australia and India. Without further ado, let's get into it. Let's have a look at the match summary from match number 11 of this Super 8s stage of this ICC T20 World Cup for 2024 between Australia and India from the Darren Sammy National Cricket Stadium. India batted first and made 5 for 205 from their 20 overs. Rohit Sharma top scored with 92, and Mitchell Starc and Marcus Stoinis took 2 wickets each for Australia. Australia needed 206 runs to win. They finished on 7 for 181 from their 20 overs. Travis Head top scored with 76, and Arshdeep Singh took 3 wickets for India. India won by 24 runs, and Rohit Sharma was named player of the match. What were the key moments and key factors from match number 11 of this Super 8 stage of this ICC T20 World Cup for 2024 between Australia and India from the Darren Sammy National Cricket Stadium? Rohit Sharma's innings of 92 or 41 was key to India reaching their total of 5 for 205 from 20 overs. It really put Australia's bowlers on the back foot from the get-go, and his innings pretty much got India off to that good start and pretty much set up the game. Travis Head and Mitchell Marsh partnership of 81 for the second wicket was a key partnership for Australia and looked like getting Australia to that target of 206 at one stage. But when Marsh was dismissed by an outstanding catch from Axar Patel and Travis Head soon departed soon after, the game swung favourably in India's favour, and India were able to keep Australia at bay and win this game and knock Australia out of this T20 World Cup. So those were the key moments and key factors from match number 11 of this Super 8 stage of this ICC T20 World Cup for 2024 between Australia and India. Let's talk about how both Australia and India performed in match number 11 of this Super 8 stage of this ICC T20 World Cup for 2024 at the Darren Sammy National Cricket Stadium. First of all, let's talk about Australia and talk about their performance and start with their batting performance first of all. It was a fighting batting performance with the bat from Australia, but it was always going to be hard to chase down 205. And pretty much their batting put up a good fight. But whenever you're chasing 200 in T20 match, you really got to go from the get-go. You can't afford to get behind the run rate early on. They lost wickets at crucial times and couldn't form any partnerships. And that was the disappointing thing from Australia. They were a good chance of chasing down the runs. Travis Head played well, and he was probably the best of the Australian batters, 76 or 43. Probably for Australia's chances of winning this game, he probably needed some support, needed to stay in at the end if Australia were able to chase the runs down. Once he got out, pretty much it was the game over. He also had a good partnership with Mitchell Marsh. That partnership between Head and Marsh of 81 for the second wicket was looking like getting Australia to the target. They were very comfortable at the crease. Nothing was troubling them. They were putting bowlers under pressure. And Mitchell Marsh got out by an outstanding catch by Axar Patel, which pretty much turned the game around in India's favour. And that's where Australia started to go downhill after that. Australia's batting, as it was against Afghanistan, disappointing again. Obviously, Marcus Stoinis was disappointing. Tim David, Matthew Wade didn't really do much. Glenn Maxwell played a good 20, but then got out. David Warner, in his final T20 international for Australia and his international career as well, seeing that Australia's already knocked out of this T20 World Cup, was disappointing. Got out for 6. And, Travis Head and Mitchell Marsh, probably the only 2 Australian batters who looked comfortable at the crease and looked like getting the job done for Australia. But it's, I suppose, for Australia, conceding 200 with the ball, it was always going to put them under some sort of pressure, and that's what happened. As soon as you chase 200 at a T20 match, you need to have everything that can go right for you. You need things to go your way. You need to have a bit of luck. The pitch was pretty good here in St. Lucia. The pitch has been pretty good throughout the whole entire tournament. It's probably one of the best batting surfaces we've seen in this entire T20 World Cup. And in this game, it really indicated that it was. But Australia, bottom line is they leaked too many runs with the ball. Chasing 205 was always going to be a tough ask. And if they were chasing anything below that, they would have been in with a chance. But unfortunately, it just wasn't to be for them in this game, which they needed to win to stay in the tournament. But unfortunately, they've been eliminated. Also, Mitchell Marsh choosing to bowl first. There was a bit of weather around in St. Lucia. We had a bit of a rain delay during the game. Obviously, Mitchell Marsh, people may talk about it. Why would you bowl first in a game that you have to win? Runs on the board, putting pressure on the opposition is probably the way to go in crunch games where you have to win and you have to put pressure on the opposition. Mitchell Marsh, maybe he had a bit of an idea that the weather may affect this game. There were predictions of thunderstorms and that happening throughout the game, which didn't happen. There was a brief shower. But obviously, Duckworth-Lewis in the mind as well. Chasing usually favours the team chasing in Duckworth-Lewis sort of situations. With that in mind, that's why he decided to bowl first. But I think people will question that, saying, maybe we should have batted first, probably put a big score on the board on a very good surface, and probably put India under pressure chasing because Australia won the toss. Australia won the toss and chose to bowl first. So some people may question that with Mitchell Marsh. But at the end of the day, that didn't really matter. Australia were pretty poor with the bat in the game against Afghanistan, the same against India as well. But I suppose in this game against India, they had an opportunity to chase down these runs. So we're looking good. Travis Head and Mitchell Marsh in that partnership, as I mentioned, were keeping up with the run rate. And then as soon as they went, it pretty much fell down from there. So Australia, yes, again, their batting let them down in this game against India. Moving on, let's talk about the Australian bowlers and their performance in this match. Just like the performance with the ball against Afghanistan, the performance here against India with the ball was pretty disappointing, pretty poor from Australia. Leaked too many runs on a good surface. That's probably the one area where Australia let themselves down with the ball, is they leaked too many runs. 205 is too many runs to leak. They couldn't pick up early wickets in the power play, and they couldn't contain Rohit Sharma, who played an absolute blinder, scoring 90, 92 or 41. As soon as he went from the start, in terms of his aggressive approach with the bat, that's where it pretty much cost Australia the match. They didn't quite build pressure with dot balls and wickets. They didn't execute their lines and lengths. Mitchell Starc went for a big over in his second over of the innings that he bowled to Rohit Sharma. He went for plenty. All the bowlers leaked runs. And it was a pretty ordinary performance. Also, the fielding again from Australia was disappointing. Mitchell Marsh dropped a straightforward catch at backward point off. Sort of hit him in the face and bounced out of his hands. But also Tim David took a very good catch to get rid of Virat Kohli when Josh Hazlewood got the first wicket of the innings when Kohli skied one and mistimed a pull shot and was out for a duck. That was a pretty good catch running back with the flight, but that was the only highlight of the fielding performance from Australia. And, a couple of misfields as well, and they just didn't really look on it, really. Pretty mediocre with the ball. And bottom line is that they leaked too many runs, leaked too many runs, couldn't build pressure on India, and the Indian batters, along with Rohit Sharma, were able to take full toll on a very good surface in St. Lucia. So nothing much to add on there for Australia. Pretty much poor bowling, execution of skills, fielding again. They couldn't pick up early wickets. Rohit Sharma, they couldn't contain him early. He went off to a bit of a blinder, played a blinder of an innings, went off to a very quick start. And these are the things that Australia would look back and say, yep, if we could have done those things a little bit better, it could have been a different result. But as it was against the game against Afghanistan, the bowling was poor again in this game against India. So for Australia, they're pretty much out of the tournament. Obviously, Afghanistan winning the way they did against Bangladesh in dramatic style. They just haven't been up to the mark in the last two games against Afghanistan and India, I should say. So Australia will be disappointed. One of the favourites to win this tournament. They haven't done it. They've been knocked out. People will raise a lot of questions. Will people care about the result in Australia? Probably not, given how people see T20 cricket. But anyway, that's the way it goes in T20 cricket. You either have good and bad days. And Australia had a couple of bad days against Afghanistan and India, which has pretty much cost them a spot in the semi-finals. But that's just the way it goes in cricket. You win some, you lose some. There's always another tournament, as they say. But for Australia, the batting was a good effort. They gave it a good go, even though they couldn't chase down 205. The bowling was mediocre, poor, two runs, and that's where they were really under pressure with Rohit Sharma and the rest of the Indian batters. So, a disappointing performance from Australia, which has seen them get knocked out of this T20 World Cup. Let's move on and talk about India's performance with bat and ball. We'll start with the batting side of things for India. And it was a dominant batting performance with the bat by India. Scoring 205 on a good pitch put them into a position of dominance, kept the pressure on Australia from the get-go and never relented. And it was mainly centred around Rohit Sharma's innings of 92 from 41, set the tone. And as I was watching the game, a few shots that Rohit Sharma played, he didn't quite time them. But when he did time the ball and when he did hit the ball out of the middle, it went a long way over the rope for six. He just had one of those days where you just play a blinder of an innings, and that's what happened. Striking at 224. 92. He was probably the only Indian batter that looked comfortable at the crease and looked like, scoring all the runs, which he did. He scored majority of the runs with some contributions from, Pant and Suryakumar Yadav and Dubey and Hardik Pandya and obviously Jadeja at the end. But it was mainly Rohit Sharma who set up this game for India in terms of the batting. Dominated the power play, put India in a very good position after the power play. I think India were 1 for 60 after the power play, which put them on track to get 200 plus. And it's probably his best T20 international innings, probably Rohit Sharma. And, probably he's got a point to prove as well, Rohit Sharma, being captain of India, seeing that India are one of the strongest teams, probably the strongest team now, seeing that Australia have already been eliminated out of India, South Africa, Afghanistan, and England, who are playing in the semi-finals. you would think India is probably the strongest team to win the whole tournament. It's probably their tournament to lose. And I think Rohit Sharma's got a point to prove, and he proved a point here in this game against Australia. Really down Australian bowlers. Had a good partnership with Rishabh Pant of 87 for the second wicket, and that pretty much, that partnership and the rest of the contributions from Pant and Suryakumar Yadav and Dubey, Hardik Pandya did well to support him in the process and also get the team score well above 200. Also, Virat Kohli missed out. He got out for a duck. He's been lacking runs in this T20 World Cup. But I suppose when you have a batting lineup like India have, it doesn't really matter if one or two of their batters miss out. You know, a Rohit Sharma and a Pant or a Suryakumar Yadav can score the runs. So, you know, they've got that batting depth. They've got a pretty good team. And that's why they're one of the favourites to win the tournament now, seeing that Australia's been knocked out as we enter the semi-finals. But overall, a very strong batting performance by India in this game. And, you know, anything over 200, they were more than favourites to win the game, and that's what happened. Let's quickly talk about the bowling performance from India quickly. And it was a solid bowling performance by India. They were put under pressure by Travis Head and Mitchell Marsh at stages throughout that partnership in the run chase for Australia. That partnership looked like getting the job done for Australia. But with the rest of the bowlers going for runs and leaking runs on a good surface, the spells that Axel Patel and Kuldeep Yadav bowled, they bowled 7 overs between them. Those 7 overs were very crucial in terms of turning this game around for Australia, turning this game around from Australia's favour to India's favour, I should say. They kept the runs down and bowled some tidy overs, which saw the required run rate climb for Australia. Whenever you're chasing 200, you need to keep scoring. You need to find boundaries. And they kept the boundaries to a minimum in their spell. And then Kuldeep Yadav got the big wicket of Mitchell Marsh, who put it straight to a deep backward square leg where Axel Patel took a one-handed blinder. And that catch and that moment probably changed the course of the game in India's favour. And it did. So, you know, the spinners got it done on a pitch where the fast bowlers and the seamers were going for plenty. And that pretty much turned the game around, really. And they did a very good job. They went for 7 and 6 runs over, respectively. And also Arshdeep Singh, I should say, bowled pretty well, took 3 for 37 from his 4. And, you know, he bowled pretty well out of the seamers. You know, Bumrah bowled well as well. Hardik Pandya probably had a day to forget. He went for 47 from his 4, didn't take a wicket. Jadeja, he only bowled 1 over, which went for 17. But besides from that, India's bowling, it's a pretty good bowling unit, especially in the Caribbean, where you have pitches that are going to turn and be low and slow. Having the 3-spinner attack of Kuldeep, Patel and Jadeja is definitely going to play in their favour as we progress into the semi-finals of this tournament. So for India, I think they'll be pleased with their bowling performance. They were put under pressure, but they found a way to put the pressure back on Australia, and they did that very well. Also, they'll be very happy with the batting performance, especially Rohit Sharma from his point of view as captain, leading from the front. I think they'll be happy about that. And I think overall, India will be very pleased of how they've played in the Super 8s. They've gone through the Super 8s undefeated. They've gone through the group stage of this T20 World Cup undefeated. The question is now, are they good enough to beat England in the semi-final and win the whole tournament? Out of all the teams that are in the semi-finals at the moment, England, South Africa and Afghanistan, India look the strongest out of the lot. So it's pretty much their tournament to lose, really. But we will have to wait and see come the semi-finals and what happens there. Anything could happen in a semi-final. But for India, they'll be pleased about the performance against Australia in this game. Obviously, getting their revenge back after what happened in the Cricket World Cup final last year in India. Some concluding thoughts to end on our review of this Super 8s match between Australia and India. A dominant performance with bat and ball from India, showing why they are one of the favourites to win this T20 World Cup. Rohit Sharma was outstanding with the bat, and their bowlers were able to defend 205 on a good surface. They have banished the scars from the Cricket World Cup final last year against Australia and have eliminated them from this T20 World Cup. India will now face England in the second semi-final on Thursday on the 27th of June at the Providence Stadium. India will be looking to get their revenge on England after what they did in the 2022 T20 World Cup semi-final at the Adelaide Oval, where England won by 10 wickets. Can India win this time, or will it be 2022 all over again? For Australia, this defeat against India, and with Afghanistan winning the match against Bangladesh in dramatic style, has ended their T20 World Cup for 2024. Going in as one of the favourites to win this T20 World Cup, Australia will be disappointed on how they played in the games against Afghanistan and in this game against India. But the reason they were in this position is simple. They didn't quite execute with bat and ball, and that game against Afghanistan was the bad day that they didn't want to have. In T20 cricket or in T20 World Cups, you have one bad day, it could decide your tournament. And unfortunately for Australia, the defeat against Afghanistan and this defeat against India has decided their T20 World Cup fate. They will be disappointed, but I suppose there's always next time in 2 years' time in 2026. But they will be disappointed, Australia, with the way they've played in this T20 World Cup, especially in these last two games against Afghanistan and India. Thanks everyone for listening to our review of match number 11 of the Super 8 stage of this ICC T20 World Cup for 2024 between Australia and India. If you're watching or listening to this episode of the podcast on our YouTube channel, let us know your thoughts on match number 11 of this Super 8 stage of this ICC T20 World Cup for 2024 between Australia and India in the comments. We would love to hear what you have to say. Thanks for watching and listening. Until next time, keep safe and bye for now.